Plymouth Rock, the true story of America's beginning. Over 400 years ago, a small group of English settlers made a journey that would change history. They were ordinary people, yet their courage was extraordinary. They dreamed of freedom, freedom to practice their faith, freedom to build a life in a land unknown, across the vast and treacherous Atlantic Ocean. These settlers are known as the Pilgrims. In September 1620, 102 men, women, and children boarded a ship called the Mayflower. They left behind their homes, their families, and everything familiar. Every day on the ship was a test of endurance. The Atlantic Ocean was unforgiving, storms tossed the vessel violently, and cramped, unsanitary conditions made life a constant struggle. But they pressed on. Hope and faith guided them. After 66 long days at sea, they finally sighted land in November 1620. It wasn't where they had planned. Their intended destination near the Hudson River was unreachable. Instead, they found the rugged shores of Cape Cod, icy and harsh, a place that would soon become their new home. After exploring the coastline, the Pilgrims found a safe harbor, Plymouth. And according to tradition, this is where they first set foot on a large, weathered rock. Today, we know it as Plymouth Rock. At first glance, it may seem ordinary. But over the centuries, it has become a symbol of courage, perseverance, and the beginning of a new chapter in history. Plymouth Rock tells the story of survival against impossible odds. It represents men, women, and children daring to dream of freedom and a new life. It reminds us that sometimes the smallest things, a single rock, a single step, can leave a legacy that lasts for centuries. Behind this stone lies a much larger story, the perilous voyage of the Mayflower, the brutal first winter, the guidance of the Wampanoag people, and the creation of a new society founded on cooperation and faith. In the next hour, we will explore all of this, the triumphs, the struggles, and the lasting legacy of Plymouth Rock and the Pilgrims who stepped onto it. Join us as we travel back in time to 1620 to witness the courage, determination, and hope that helped shape America itself. Before Plymouth Rock became a symbol of America, the Pilgrims were ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges. They were separatists, English Protestants who rejected the Church of England. To them, the Church had become corrupt, its practices interfering with true faith. Practicing their beliefs openly in England was dangerous. They faced persecution, fines, and even imprisonment. Families lived in constant fear, attending secret meetings in hidden rooms or barns to worship freely. The Pilgrims longed for a place where they could live according to their conscience without fear of punishment. In 1608, a small group of these separatists made a bold choice. They left England for the Netherlands. Life there offered religious freedom and safety, but it came with new challenges. Language barriers, cultural differences, and economic struggles made daily life difficult. Pilgrim parents also worried that their children were losing their English identity in a foreign land. Despite these challenges, the Pilgrims' determination never wavered. They dreamed of a land where they could build a community rooted in faith, cooperation, and hope. This dream eventually led them to an even greater risk, crossing the Atlantic Ocean to establish a colony in the unknown New World. Their journey was not just about survival, it was about faith, vision, and courage. Leaders like William Bradford and John Carver guided the community, keeping their hope alive and planning a future that would extend far beyond their own lifetimes. Every decision they made, leaving England, settling temporarily in the Netherlands, and ultimately planning the voyage to America, reflected a bold commitment to freedom and the pursuit of a better life. Their story is one of resilience, foresight, and the human desire to seek a new beginning. After years of dreaming and planning, the Pilgrims were ready to take the next step, crossing the Atlantic Ocean to establish a new colony. But preparing for this journey was no simple task. The ship that would carry them, the Mayflower, was a cargo vessel designed for transporting goods, not people. It was roughly 100 feet long and heavily loaded, making the voyage uncomfortable and dangerous. Every inch of space was filled with supplies, barrels of salted meat, dried beans, hardtack, tools, and personal belongings. Families had to sleep in cramped quarters, sometimes sharing beds or sleeping on the floor amid the noise of creaking timbers and the rolling of the sea. Farewells were heart-wrenching. Loved ones who could not come aboard waved from the docks. Parents whispered prayers over their children, unsure if they would ever see each other again. Every departure carried the weight of uncertainty, but also hope. Hope that a new land would bring freedom, opportunity, and safety. Pilgrim leaders, including William Bradford and John Carver, meticulously planned the voyage. They organized supplies, managed food rations, and prepared for the unpredictable dangers of the sea. Yet, even the most careful preparations could not shield them from storms, sickness, and the harsh realities of a long ocean crossing. The journey was a test of endurance, faith, and community. Each passenger relied on one another to survive the cramped, cold, and often unsanitary conditions. And though fear and uncertainty loomed, the Pilgrims pressed on, driven by a shared dream of a new beginning in a land that promised freedom and opportunity. This preparation, the months of planning, gathering supplies, and saying goodbye to everything familiar, set the stage for one of the most famous journeys in history, the voyage of the Mayflower, a journey that would forever change the course of America. The voyage across the Atlantic was one of the greatest tests the Pilgrims would ever face. The Mayflower, a sturdy cargo ship, was not built for comfort or speed. It was designed to carry goods, not people, and the 66-day journey would push everyone to their limits. Storms battered the ship almost daily. The ocean tossed the Mayflower violently, drenching passengers in freezing waves. Seasickness was widespread. Cramped conditions made rest nearly impossible. The Pilgrims huddled together in dimly lit quarters, praying, singing psalms, and supporting one another as fear and uncertainty loomed over every day. Life aboard the ship was monotonous and harsh. Meals were simple: hardtack, salted meat, dried beans, often eaten cold and soggy. Water became stale after days of travel. Hygiene was difficult, and illness spread quickly in the close quarters. Yet, despite the discomfort and danger, the Pilgrims endured. Their faith and determination kept them going, reminding each other that a new beginning awaited on the distant shores of the New World. Among the passengers were leaders who would shape the future of the colony. William Bradford kept detailed journals, recording daily life, fears, and hopes. John Carver guided the community with wisdom and foresight, while Miles Standish, the military advisor, remained vigilant against threats from both land and sea. At night, the Pilgrims would look out over the dark, endless ocean, wondering if they would survive the journey. The stars above were their only guide, and the promise of freedom, the only light in their hearts. After more than 2 months at sea, the weary passengers finally sighted land in November 1620. They had traveled over 3,000 miles, facing storms, disease, and hunger. And yet, they survived, together. This voyage was more than a journey across water. It was a testament to the courage, resilience, and faith of ordinary people striving for a new beginning. The Mayflower's voyage set the stage for the founding of Plymouth Colony, a story that would echo through centuries and become a cornerstone of American history. After 66 days at sea, the weary Pilgrims finally sighted land in November 1620. Relief, excitement, and anxiety filled their hearts. But this was not the land they had planned to reach. Their intended destination, near the Hudson River, was far to the south, and dangerous shoals and storms forced them to explore further along the coast. The shoreline of Cape Cod was harsh and unfamiliar. Rocky beaches, dense forests, and freezing winds greeted them. The winter was approaching fast, and they knew that surviving here would be a monumental challenge. The Pilgrims had to find a place to settle quickly, a harbor that offered fresh water, shelter, and resources for the long, brutal months ahead. They sent small groups in rowboats to explore the surrounding area. Every new cove or inlet was examined carefully. The Pilgrims walked through frozen forests, observing the land, its wildlife, and the signs of the native people who already lived here. Each day was a mixture of hope and fear. After days of exploration, they discovered Plymouth Harbor, a small, protected inlet surrounded by hills and forests. It offered fresh water, natural resources, and a defensible position. It was not perfect, but it was safe enough to attempt settlement. Before stepping ashore, the Pilgrims signed the Mayflower Compact, an agreement to work together and govern their community as equals. This simple act of self-governance would become a foundational moment in American history. Finally, on a cold December day, the first Pilgrims set foot on Plymouth soil. Tradition tells us they stepped onto a large rock, now remembered as Plymouth Rock. This unassuming stone would become a powerful symbol, a reminder of courage, faith, and the willingness to take the first step toward a new beginning. The landing at Cape Cod was only the start. Ahead lay the brutal first winter, the building of a new colony, and the challenge of survival in a land that was beautiful but unforgiving. But in this moment, as their feet touched the shore and their eyes took in the new horizon, the Pilgrims were filled with hope that a new life was possible, and that freedom and faith could flourish in this distant land. After months at sea, battling storms and uncertainty, the Pilgrims finally set foot on the shores of the New World. Tradition tells us that their first step was onto a modest, weathered stone, now remembered as Plymouth Rock. At first glance, it may appear small and ordinary, but it carries a weight far greater than its size. This rock symbolizes the courage it took to leave everything familiar behind: home, family, friends, and the only life they had ever known. For the Pilgrims, stepping onto Plymouth Rock was more than just a physical act. It was a leap into the unknown, a commitment to survival, faith, and hope for a new beginning. The winter winds were harsh, and the Pilgrims knew they had little time to establish shelter before the cold claimed their lives. Yet, the moment they stepped on this shore, there was a sense of purpose, a quiet determination that would carry them through the challenges ahead. Every footstep represented resilience, every glance toward the horizon reflected hope. Plymouth Rock has grown into a powerful symbol over the centuries. It reminds generations that even the smallest actions, a single step, a single decision, can shape history. The Pilgrims' first step was not just onto a stone, but into a story that would define freedom, community, and perseverance in America. As the settlers unloaded supplies, carried their families, and began scouting locations for shelters, they faced the daunting reality of their new home. Rocky soil, bitter cold, and limited food resources tested their resolve. Yet, that first step on Plymouth Rock anchored them, a physical and spiritual starting point for the colony that would rise from these shores. This small rock, now protected and honored, is a testament to human courage. It tells a story of ordinary people making extraordinary choices. And as we look back on that moment, more than 400 years later, it continues to inspire Americans to remember the values of bravery, faith, and the hope of a new beginning. The first winter at Plymouth was brutal. The settlers had arrived late in the year, with freezing temperatures, icy winds, and limited food supplies. Their makeshift shelters offered little protection, and disease quickly spread through the colony. By the spring of 1621, nearly half of the original settlers had perished, men, women, and children alike. Hunger was constant. The Pilgrims had brought only a limited supply of food from England, and the rocky soil made farming nearly impossible without guidance. The cold and exposure took a heavy toll on their bodies, and many families mourned the loss of loved ones. Yet, even in this desperate time, hope arrived in the form of unexpected allies. The Wampanoag people, native to the region, had lived on the land for generations. Squanto, a member of the Patuxet tribe, who had traveled to Europe and learned English, became an invaluable guide. He taught the Pilgrims how to plant corn, fish in the local rivers, and gather native plants for food. With Squanto's help, the Pilgrims began to understand the land that would become their home. They learned to adapt, planting crops using the techniques he taught, storing food for the months ahead, and forming a fragile but growing bond with the Wampanoag. The first winter tested the Pilgrims' resilience in every possible way, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. But it also revealed the power of cooperation and the strength of community. Those who survived did so because they worked together, learned from the land and its people, and refused to give up hope. This winter shaped the colony, teaching lessons of survival, gratitude, and the importance of alliances. It was a period of hardship that would later be remembered as the foundation upon which Plymouth Colony was built, a testament to endurance, courage, and the human spirit in the face of overwhelming adversity. By the spring of 1621, Plymouth Colony began to take shape. The settlers who had survived the harsh winter now faced the challenge of building a community from the ground up. Every day was laborious and uncertain. Pilgrims worked tirelessly to construct homes, clear the land, and prepare for the next winter. Shelters were simple, wooden frames covered with bark or reeds, often cramped but enough to protect families from the elements. Tools were basic, and the rocky New England soil made farming difficult. Yet, the Pilgrims adapted. They learned from the Wampanoag people how to plant crops suited to the land, ensuring that food supplies could sustain the colony in the future. The Mayflower Compact, signed before they ever set foot on shore, now guided daily life. Decisions were made collectively. Community meetings allowed settlers to voice concerns, share ideas, and plan for the welfare of all. It was a system built on cooperation, respect, and shared responsibility, a small but revolutionary step towards self-governance in the New World. Children helped with chores, women tended gardens and prepared food, and men hunted and built shelters. Every member of the colony played a role. Despite hardships, there was a growing sense of pride and purpose. The Pilgrims were not merely surviving, they were laying the foundation of a society. By the end of the first year, Plymouth Colony had established homes, cleared fields for crops, and built the structures necessary for community life. This was more than survival, it was the beginning of a lasting settlement. The lessons learned during this period, resilience, cooperation, and adaptation, would shape the colony for generations to come. Plymouth Colony's establishment shows us the power of determination, planning, and community. These settlers, guided by faith and hope, were creating more than a home, they were creating the blueprint of a society that valued collaboration, perseverance, and the shared dream of a new life in a new world. By the fall of 1621, the Pilgrims had endured their first year in the New World. After a brutal winter that claimed nearly half of their colony, the settlers had finally planted crops successfully, guided by the knowledge and generosity of the Wampanoag people. To celebrate their survival and the harvest, the Pilgrims shared a feast with the Wampanoag, a tradition we now remember as the first Thanksgiving. For 3 days, they gathered to give thanks for life, community, and the resources that had sustained them. The food was simple but meaningful. Corn, beans, and squash formed the foundation of the meal, complemented by fish, wild fowl, and venison provided by the Wampanoag. There were no pies, turkeys, or cranberry sauce as we know them today, yet the spirit of gratitude was profound. This gathering was more than a meal. It was a celebration of cooperation, trust, and mutual respect between two very different cultures. The Wampanoag had taught the Pilgrims how to survive, the Pilgrims had endured hardships that demonstrated resilience and determination. Together, they marked a moment of unity in a harsh and unpredictable world. The first Thanksgiving reminds us that survival is rarely a solo effort. It is built on relationships, knowledge sharing, and community. For the Pilgrims, it was an opportunity to reflect on a year of trials and triumphs, and to honor those who had helped them endure. Though the tradition has evolved over the centuries, the first Thanksgiving remains a symbol of gratitude, collaboration, and hope. It captures the essence of Plymouth Colony, the courage to face hardship, the humility to learn from others, and the joy of celebrating life together even in the face of uncertainty. Legacy. Plymouth Rock may appear to be just a simple, weathered stone, but its significance stretches far beyond its size. Over the centuries, it has become a symbol of courage, perseverance, and the pursuit of freedom. For generations of Americans, it represents the beginning of a nation built on determination and faith. The Pilgrims' first step onto this rock was more than a physical act, it marked the start of a journey that would influence the values and identity of the emerging colony. Every hardship they endured, the treacherous Atlantic voyage, the brutal first winter, and the challenge of building a new society, is reflected in the symbolism of this stone. Through the years, Plymouth Rock has been moved, protected, and celebrated. Monuments were built around it, and artists immortalized the Pilgrims' landing in paintings and sculptures. Yet the rock itself remains unchanged, quietly witnessing history as it unfolds. It reminds us of the sacrifices made by ordinary people who dared to dream of a better life. The Pilgrims were not heroes in the traditional sense, they were men, women, and children taking risks for faith, freedom, and hope. Plymouth Rock serves as a tangible link to their courage and the legacy they left behind. Even today, visitors from around the world come to touch the stone, to connect with a story that shaped America. It inspires reflection on perseverance, community, and the importance of taking the first step, even when the future is uncertain. Plymouth Rock symbolism goes beyond history books. It is a reminder that every journey begins with a single step, that courage and determination can leave a lasting legacy, and that the values of cooperation, resilience, and faith are timeless. The rock is more than a monument, it is a testament to the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. Today, Plymouth stands as both a living town and a historic symbol of America's early beginnings. The harbor that once welcomed weary pilgrims now welcomes thousands of visitors each year, eager to walk the streets, touch Plymouth Rock, and imagine life in 1620. Plymouth Rock, carefully preserved under protective structures, continues to inspire reflection on courage, faith, and perseverance. Nearby, the Mayflower II, an exact replica of the original ship, offers visitors a chance to step aboard and experience the conditions the Pilgrims faced during their historic journey. Walking through the cramped quarters, seeing the supplies and sleeping areas, visitors can feel a connection to the hardships and determination of those who crossed the Atlantic over 400 years ago. The town of Plymouth also celebrates its heritage with museums, reenactments, and annual events. Thanksgiving festivals honor the cooperation and shared gratitude between the Pilgrims and the Wampanoag people. Schools use Plymouth as a living classroom, teaching children about history, perseverance, and the founding values of community and faith. Plymouth today is more than a historic site. It is a reminder of the importance of remembering the past while connecting it to our present. Families, tourists, and students alike can walk the same ground, reflect on the struggles and triumphs of the Pilgrims, and understand how a small group of settlers helped shape the values and ideals that continue to influence America. Visiting Plymouth invites us to consider our own journeys, the steps we take in life, the challenges we face, and the legacy we leave behind. It reminds us that history is not just in books, it is in the places we walk, the stories we tell, and the lessons we carry forward. Plymouth stands as a living monument to courage, community, and the enduring power of hope. The story of the Pilgrims reminds us that courage, faith, and determination can leave a lasting legacy. That first step onto Plymouth Rock wasn't just a moment in time, it was the beginning of a journey that shaped America's history and values. Visiting this place, seeing the rock, walking the harbor, we connect with the struggles and triumphs of those early settlers. Their perseverance through hardship and their willingness to work together offers lessons that remain relevant today. If you've enjoyed this journey back in time, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to explore more incredible stories from America's past. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which moment of the Pilgrim story inspired you the most? Thank you for joining us on this journey to Plymouth. Remember, history isn't just about the past, it's about the courage and choices that continue to shape our present and future. If you enjoyed this journey to Plymouth and want to explore more incredible stories from America's past, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to never miss a video. Leave a comment below telling us which part of the Pilgrim's journey inspired you the most, the courage to leave home, surviving the first winter, or the first Thanksgiving. Join us, and let's uncover history together, one story at a time.